So why don't we start with Art?
I will unmute myself so I can introduce myself. I'm Art Wheaton. I'm the Director of Labor and Environmental Programs for Cornell University, the ILR School. And I teach a lot of the RRP classes for Cornell and do a lot in Rochester and Erie County and for Monroe County Department of Health.
Really glad to have you, Art. Next on my screen is Cait.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cait Fallone. I work at the University of Rochester Medical Center, and I am the Community Engagement Corps Program Manager there. And that's housed in the Environmental Health Sciences Center, which is funded by the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. So we're an NIH-funded site at the U of R, and we really focus on developing educational materials that talk about exposure science, and working with local community groups and government as well, local government, to help kind of address some of the concerns that are in our local area, as well as with the researchers at the U of R.
Thanks, Cait. Really glad you're here. Next on my screen is Elizabeth.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Elizabeth McDade. I've been working with the Coalition to Prevent Lead Poisoning since 2007. And I'm grateful to all of our community partners, including Cait and Art, who are here helping Andrea and I get the word out to the community in a way that is rather unusual than what we've been doing in the past. But in some ways, it allows us to do more, which is kind of an interesting way to think about it. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Maybe we can move on now to just talking really briefly. Maybe Elizabeth and Art can talk about how do you know if you have lead in your home, just as a quick level set, and why you should use lead safe cleaning techniques.
Well, I'll go first. I'm sure Art will correct me, and many people in this class will, in this group will as well. So, we make the assumption that if your house was built before 1978, before they removed lead from paint, if you're unable to actually go and get a test or hire somebody to come in with an XRF gun to, clearly identify that there's lead there, the presumption should just be that there is, and then you work accordingly. So if your home was built before 1978, which is when they outlawed the use of lead in paint and in gasoline, chances are, even if your home is beautifully maintained, when it was first painted, up here in Rochester, New York, we have beautiful, we are house rich with beautiful 1920s era homes, a lot of them. So is Buffalo, where Art is calling in from. We have some great housing stock, but it's got a lot of lead paint in it. And so we want to make sure that people understand that even if you can't get a definite indication or a test or whatever, that this is a situation, you should just go ahead and work accordingly and make sure that you don't actually create a situation or exacerbate a situation so that you have some unintended health consequences as a result of doing something improperly. Art?
I don't think I have too much to add to that, but what I would say is a lot of times you'll find that the lead is not just in the paint, that they also used to put lead in varnish and shellac and some of the other components in a house. So I agree that if the house was built before 1978, you should pretty much assume that it has lead-based paint. There are some telltale signs. They call it like alligatoring of the skin of the paint. You can see where it's chipping and peeling and painting and it looks kind of like alligator or rough skin. That's kind of an indication, but the best way is to assume. And if you want to start doing renovations or work, then the best is to call someone who's RRP certified or a lead inspector, and they can come in with the XRF machine, which is the X-ray fluorescent instrument. And they will not only tell you if you have lead, they will tell you where there is lead and how much lead there is. There are some methods that I teach people if they're taking the RRP class to try to check them. It's called the lead check swabs. I hate these things. I think they're terrible, and I hope people never buy them. Even though I have to show people how to use them for the EPA, I think they're terrible because you have to create a hazard to test for a hazard. And a lot of people will get false confidence in whether or not when they tested it and they don't use it appropriately. So it's okay in a pinch, it's okay for a professional, but I would no way ever recommend a homeowner try using those and have any sense of confidence that they worked. So I've had lots of duds that don't work for me when I'm teaching in the class demonstrating it. The best way to know is either one, assume it's always got lead, so you're always working safely, or two, hire a professional. And even for the professionals, the XRF machine is the best way to tell. You can do paint chip sampling, you can use the lead check swabs, but far and away, just assume it's got lead or hire someone with an XRF machine.
I always tell people that, actually not knowing doesn't make the problem go away. And so it's really great if you can get somebody to go into your home. In our area, it's a couple of $100 for the professional go in with the XRF gun, but they're reading all of the painted surfaces in your home. And so they really give you a blueprint of where issues are. And so one of the ways that I think it's important for us to think about, we can't scare the heck out of people without giving them some tools as to how to move forward. And I think having an XRF report, if you can, allows you to do things like to either understand that your house isn't full of lead, if that's what you're scared about, and or maybe, your bedroom has the hot windows or the baby's room has the hot windows. And so you guys switch bedrooms and yours doesn't. There's small ways to think about how do you approach this. It can also help you give you a work plan for how do you move forward. If you're going to focus on renovating a certain space, maybe you don't do the one you were going to do first. I know in my house, when I bought my house in 1920, when I bought my house a couple of years ago, it was built in 1920. Turns out that not only were the windows painted with lead paint, but so was the interior of the kitchen and the bathroom, which made sense, of course, because those were high traffic areas, those are water resistant, and so lead paint is the most durable, and that's why they were painted with there. But of course, the other side of that is that with our beautiful 1920 homes, when people come in here, the first things they renovate are the kitchen and the bathroom, and they just go in there and they start, knocking stuff down. So we want to make sure that people are aware of what they need to do and how you can actually approach it pretty simply if you just are sort of educating yourself and taking some precautions.
I would say the other places to keep special mind of are porches, any kind of porches or stairways. Anything that had heavy traffic or was exposed to the weather, they tended to use more lead on those. And I agree completely. Having someone check it with an XRF machine is great, but it's not something you have to do every day. And it's important if you're going to be doing some renovation work.
All right. So, Andrea, what is next on our agenda?
So when we're thinking about things that homeowners and families can do, cleaning techniques to in a safe way, Art, could you demonstrate how someone might safely clean like a windowsill?
Why I have a weird setup on my room today. So if you have a window that's going on.
Is there any way for you to get a little bit closer to the camera?
It's always possible.
It's just a little bit hard. But maybe we should also make sure that everybody is watching not with gallery view, but with speaker view. And so that way it'll be Art's will be bigger and it'll be easier to see them.
So if you get too close for the camera, then you can't see what's going on.
You do you, Art. Don't listen to me then. You do whatever works for you.
So the window is a friction surface. So the windows, as you open it and close it, I'm going to go back to where I was so I can see it.
Sorry, Art.
All right. So being a friction surface, the windows that go up and down are scraping along the sides if it's a painted window. This is a new one, so I'm not going to leave any lead paint on my room. But as the window's going up and down, you're scraping off small pieces of lead paint. And the key to know about lead-based paint, and It's the lead dust that's the big problem. So what you're really after is trying to figure out ways to clean the dust. There's a variety of methods or styles for cleaning it. I'm a big fan of just using any kind of baby wipe. Wiping and tossing, whether it's in it, you don't need to use a lot of bleach. You need to be able to have something where you can have something to wipe it and toss it, pre-moistened, pre-treated, whether it's a...
So Art, I shouldn't use my old junky vacuum cleaner to clean out my window wells?
No, I wouldn't recommend that at all. I would recommend if you're going to vacuum off to get that dust, you want to use what's called a HEPA vac. And the HEPA vac stands for high efficiency particulate air, but all you got to know is HEPA. And this one on the sticker says it's 99.97% efficient at 0.3 micron. But the thing to know about these things is it has a huge filter on it, and the top of it has a lot more suction on it, and all of the air coming into this vacuum and going out of this vacuum goes through that filter. So that what you'd never want to use for anything around lead is a shop vac. So a shop vac, if you've ever worked around drywall dust or a lot of dust, you turn it on and you see that poof of air. Worst thing in the world for you is to have that poof of lead dust in the air, because you want to be able to not have that go in your mouth. The way lead gets into your body is either through inhalation or ingestion. So anything you can do to keep it out of the air and either into the vacuum, or one of the keys is working wet. So whether it's just plain baby wipes, literally Pampers baby wipes, any kind of baby wipe where you're wiping it and tossing it. Other things you can do to protect yourself is to have some gloves. These happen to be the nitrile gloves that you can use, so that you can put those on to protect you, so you can easier to wash up when you're done. And you also want to have a respirator. So the respirator is called an N100, R100, or P100. This one happens to be an N100 respirator. So that you can.
If I'm at home, I mean, so, I might not have, I mean, we might now, right, because of what's been going on with COVID, but before this, I might not have that respirator on there. Is that necessary for doing cleaning, or is it just, I mean, and part of what we kind of skipped over is the importance of why you want to clean up the dust. So as you talked about earlier, it can be painted doors, it can be painted porches, etc. And the window is creating dust. And the problem with this dust is that it actually still has lead in it, even though it's microscopic. And that, babies in particular are prone to ingesting the lead dust that way. And so you want to make sure you're not sweeping or vacuuming with a regular vacuum cleaner, or doing any of the sort of the, whisking out with a dustpan and brush as we might on a windowsill, kind of that type of thing. Because you're creating dust clouds. You're actually making, if it's got lead paint, if there's lead dust, you're actually making it more active. And so making sure that you're cleaning anything wet or damp at least is what you want to do, right?
Yeah, I like to recommend what I think is the best. And then there are always substitutes in life for what you need to do. If you are doing it as a professional, whether you are a landlord and you're working on your properties, that means you have to follow all of the RRP rules, which you can get from the pamphlet called Renovate Right, which Andrea can put in the book as well. You can also download from the website. You can download any of the RRP rule books and the things. I try to recommend what the best is, but if you're only doing it as a homeowner, then you want to do things to try to keep you safe, but you may not have to go out and buy the N100 respirator according to the law, but the best you can get is where you should go. So if you can afford the N95 respirator and you can't find an N100, yes, that will help. Even a dust mask will help, but to be in compliance and to be the safest in what's been tested around lead dust, N100, R100, or P100 respirator, or half-face respirator with a HEPA cartridge. But like you said, you do the best you can do, but I try to start off always with what the EPA requirement is and what a lot of the scientific data has to say. So cleaning the windowsills, if you can have the gloves on, I highly recommend them. If you have a HEPA vac, then use the HEPA vac to suck up as much of the dust as you can. And if you're around carpet after you're done cleaning, you're going to need to make sure that your carpet has one of them, or your vacuum cleaner has one of them spinning brushes, so that it has a beater bar, that spinning brush that goes around, because you're going to need that to scrape up the dust around the floor. But anytime you're going to be doing any kind of work, and if you're cleaning up after you've done work, the best way to keep it clean is to start with prevention. So have your plastic laid down and taped down on the floor so that you're going to be able to use a spritz bottle and mist it with water. So just the regular squirt bottle you can get for 99 cents. Get your squirt bottle, spritz it with water to keep the dust down. Then you can fold the plastic in, and that can help you eliminate a lot of the dust. But prevention is the way to go. That's why you have the respirators, for being able to do that. Working wet is the preferred method. There are some other products, and I don't care about name brands, but the name that most people is familiar with is the Swiffer mops. They have the Swiffer Dry. These are the electrostatically charged, which means it uses the static electricity to help pick up the dust. These can be helpful as well for getting some of the remnants, but given a choice, I would rather have the wet ones. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
No, I was going to say that one of the things that you recommend is for the Swiffers, because you're not keeping it, right? You're cleaning it up and then you're tossing it. And so you're not, if you use your regular broom or something like that, you can actually keep your, you don't want to keep the dust on the broom and then reuse it in another room. And so by using something that like the Swiffer is a really great idea.
And I also have on here just plain paper towel. You can use paper towel, soap and water. Use the soap. You need the soap to help pick up the lead dust because it doesn't stick to the water as well. So you need some sort of detergent or soap in here. And, you can use Dawn, you can use whatever kind you want. There are some EPA recommended or some other types of professional cleaners you can get. But my suggestion is get the best you can deal with. I don't like using bleach. You run into other health problems, but soap and water, spray it with water, wipe it with your paper towel where you're wiping it and tossing it, and the dust is keeping down, and you'll be a lot safer. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was going to say, they used to talk about trying to get a cleanser that had TSP in it. Is that still something that's recommended, or really it could be something like Dawn or just whatever you have? I mean, it's better to have whatever you've got on hand, right? And make sure it's diluted, of course. We're not going to be spraying out, soap bubbles. But the lead dust sticks to the soap, right? It sticks to that's how come it picks it up, right?
Yeah, TSP is trisodium phosphate, which they kind of outlawed in some states. There's a lot more rules and recommendations. A lot of people will try to mix different types of cleaners and cleansers. And I'm not a big fan of that because if you mix bleach in an ammonia-based product, you end up dead on the floor. So the lead didn't kill you. You died from the cyanide gas that came off. So I like to keep it simple. So, work wet. Use any kind of soap that you're comfortable with. You may have allergies, you may have other things to deal with, but any kind of soap and water would be better. And the things that you can wipe and toss. I'm not a big fan of bleach because it gives you other problems to go along with it. You can use things to deal with COVID or other types of things. The cleaning may be slightly different for what you're recommending, but for lead, that's what I would recommend. If you're dealing with COVID, you can use something like isopropyl alcohol wipes, but these are not very good for your skin. I wouldn't want to do a lot of cleaning with those. That's something that they might have to clean your shopping cart when you go shopping.
Art, I have a question. So if I live in an older home and, I've been seeing some average, right, that it's been wintertime, spring is coming, we're going to be opening up our windows again eventually. How often should I be cleaning, do you think, to just kind of make sure I'm keeping stuff in check?
I think just a weekly, that's why I try to keep it as simple and cheap as you can.
Right.
A weekly walking around with your baby wipe will help keep any of that settling dust. And if it's clean enough to wipe the bottom of a baby's butt, you should be able to use it to wipe it with your hands and throw it away and you're not touching that residue on your hands so that you can wipe it and you're trying to keep the dust down. If you're doing work, if you are scraping any of that paint or you're painting and you're moving furniture and scraping things around, then you want to clean it more intensely. And then you're talking the HEPA vac. But vacuuming with a HEPA vac for a homeowner, it may end up only being what they call a HEPA filtered vac, but don't use a shop vac. But cleaning, I would say weekly would be a lot of help for keeping the dust down.
But it probably should be something we do as part of our spring cleaning, right? Because it's the first time we're opening the windows back up again. And we can also, I mean, if there's lead dust in there and there's breezes blowing in, that can also blow in the dust, right? I mean, it's
yes.
okay.
So it can certainly do that.
All right. Thank you, Art, for going over all that. Do we want to just real quick, like you touched on it before, but like the five main things that people should do. So work wet, get a HEPA vac. What would you say would be the other main points?
Prevention. So if you're going to be doing some work on anything, have the plastic, any kind of plastic, the thicker the plastic is better, but that doesn't mean you can't use cheap, thinner plastic, because anything to try to prevent will be there. Even things as simple as having a floor mat where you're walking in, a welcome mat where you're taking your shoes off before you come in. The other one that I wanted to mention, if people don't buy these Swiffer mops, is they also have one they call a Swiffer Wet Jet. The only reason I mention it different is you can get the soap that comes right with them, and the Velcro on these attaches very quickly. So for cleaning those, I want you to do something that's relatively easy for you to do, doesn't cost you a lot of money. You can find it in other places, but goes a long way for protecting you, your kids, and also what most people don't recognize is your pets. So that your dogs and your cats and all of those are exposed to that lead because they are closer to the ground or the floor, and they like to go to the windows. So they're going to be much more likely to be exposed to that. So I would say prevent it if you can to not get in there. I would say another one, if you're going to 5, having gloves, if you're going to be wiping around that to help keep it so that you don't get any of it in your body. So you don't want to breathe it in. Wipe it and toss it with any kind of soap. One thing you don't want to use around lead is that hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer is completely and totally worthless for lead. The primary reason is if it has lead, think of it as having a penny in your hand. And if you put the hand sanitizer on the penny and you wipe your hands with the penny didn't go anywhere. And if you're using hand sanitizer, that lead didn't go anywhere. So that's why I like something that's any kind of paper or baby wipes where you wipe it, toss it, and throw it away so that it goes away. So that
Well, you make a good point about the
toss it.
And you make a good point about the soap and water, right? We've been so focused on sanitizer for the past year, in particular, and understanding that it's important to use soap and water when we're cleaning up for lead, and washing our hands right before we're eating, all of that stuff, washing any toys that might be on the floor, all of those types of things. As you say, cleaning out the window wells, you want to make sure. I mean, I think people try to go overboard, right? And I know Cait's going to talk a little bit about that. You want to sort of be extra super clean, but that might not be the right way to approach this work.
The other thing that I would mention is about people using a soapy water in a soapy bucket. Once you start using that, you have a big opportunity of spreading that as you're dripping, as you're going over. Then what are you going to do with that dirty water? Are you making sure you're clean with it? That's why I prefer, even though you can use what's called a 2-bucket mopping method to clean things, I prefer the wipe it and toss it so that I'm not spreading any of that lead around. There are other methods if you're doing very large commercial or large scale businesses, but I'm not as big of a fan of where am I going to dump that water. And if you do have to dump the water, it would be down the toilet so that you're not putting it in a tub or a sink. It would be down the toilet so that you can get rid of it as best you can. But that's where I'll stop for now, because I got other people that know a lot more than I do on the phone and on the panel.
All right, that was terrific. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So I'm going to suggest we just switch over to Cait. And if you have any questions for Art, I'm just going to suggest you either put them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. So switching over to Cait, and talking a little bit more about safety when cleaning with bleach and other products. Cait, do you want to just talk a little bit about what families can do to use those products safely?
Sure. And Art, this was perfect transition, because I think especially during COVID, people have been really anxious about groceries that they're bringing into their house, about doorknobs, about common surfaces, which is true. We should be cleaning and sanitizing these things. But I think first and foremost, using soap and water does a really, really great job, especially if we're thinking about COVID, because it's an envelope virus, which means that all you need to do is kind of clean the outside of it, and that does a really good job with getting rid of it on surfaces. So that's my disclaimer. First and foremost, we advocate for people to just use soap and water. It does a really, really great job. But we do know that especially during COVID or with other concerns like lead, people want to be really sure that their homes, that their spaces are clean. And we also know that a lot of communities actually prefer using bleach. Sometimes there's a cultural context to it. Bleach is readily available. You can buy a really big bucket of it at a Wegmans, a Walmart, Target, for a pretty inexpensive price, and it goes a long way. We've even heard from people that, you know, if you can smell the bleach, then I know that it's clean. And we're like, no, that's not quite right. So like Andrea said, I'll be talking to you a little bit about if bleach is all you have available, or it is your cleaning product of choice when you're cleaning and disinfecting. There are ways that you can use it that are safe. But like Art said, as far as lead goes, bleach is not the top choice. I would say bleach is really far to the bottom. So keep that in mind. I know we talk a lot about lead, but just keep that in mind that bleach is not really recommended for cleaning lead. This would be more for sanitizing and cleaning certain areas. So I'll talk to you a little bit about kind of the tips that I would give for diluting bleach. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that your bleach, wherever you bought it from, is not older than 1 year old, because if it's older than a year old, it's less effective with its cleaning properties. So you can look right on the bottle, you can look on the label and see kind of what the expiration date is, and you want to just make sure that it's less than a year old. The second thing, just like Art said, is you want to wear proper PPE. And we all know about PPE, gloves, masks, and especially when you're dealing with chemicals, we recommend wearing goggles or some sort of eye protection. We know that that's not as readily available, but it's something that's definitely recommended. We also want to make sure that we have a container that can be easily labeled, either with a Sharpie or some tape and a marker. And that container can be an old yogurt container, plastic cups, anything that's disposable, easy to clean, and easy to label. When using something to clean with, we say sponge is a no-go, because like Art mentioned, especially when you have a heavy contaminated area, sponges are really tough to clean on their own, and they can actually contaminate surface to surface. So we recommend a rag that can be disposed of or thrown in the washing machine, or paper towel is great too. Spray bottles I know are really convenient and they're easily labeled, but if you're using chemicals that are harsh, such as bleach, it's not beneficial to have them in a spray bottle, because that spray can kind of get in the air, and like Art mentioned, they can cause respiratory issues, or they can cause other health conditions that we're trying to steer clear of. So it's better to not use a spray bottle when we're utilizing bleach and diluting it. And then also remember, again, never to mix certain chemicals. So in general, we say don't mix chemicals at all. Even if you think it's safe, just stick with the natural stuff or buy a chemical that's already formulated to do the job that it is intended to do, but never mix those chemicals. You can find information about that on the CDC website, the EPA website, poison control, whole host of areas. So when you're actually going to dilute bleach, there's a couple of things that you need to do, and then I'll walk through the procedure with you really quickly. So the first thing is you're going to want a measuring cup, because when we're diluting bleach, we want to make sure that we are appropriately diluting it with enough water that the bleach is still effective, but it's going to be less harsh. The smell is going to be less abrasive, and also as far as like touching the chemical, it'll be less harmful to us. So we'll have a measuring cup. I like to make small little portions of bleach because if I make too much and I don't use it, what do? Well, I just throw it down the toilet because bleach can clean the toilet, but I don't want to waste everything and I don't want all of that in there. So 1 cup measuring cup works great for me. I also use a tablespoon, again, in my smaller bleach. So a measuring cup, 1 cup, I use a tablespoon. I have my bleach and make sure it's less than a year old. I have my rag that I can throw in the washing machine. I have my cup or container that is labeled and I can dispose of, and I'm wearing a mask and gloves. So as far as the procedure goes, I make sure that I have all my PPE on first before I do anything. Then I take 1 cup in my measuring cup of cool or cold water. We don't want to use hot water when diluting bleach. Just stick with cool or cold water and put the water in your container first. We put the water in the container first because this reduces bleach splashing when you start to dilute them. So you have your container with water, then you take your 1 tablespoon of bleach, you put that into your cup of water, stir it around, and then recap the bleach, dispose of everything that you need, and then you're ready to rock and roll and clean. And again, I would just dispose of it down the toilet, any excess diluted bleach that you have, and then just make sure that you dispose of all of your materials. And I know that was kind of quick and fast and furious, but I will say, if I can I share my screen?
Should be able to.
Okay, let's see if I can.
Cait, I have a question. I never realized that chemicals or cleaning chemicals have an expiration date. Is that true for all of them, or is that really just true for bleach?
I think in general that is true. I think the older they become, the less effective they are. So I know for bleach in particular, the year mark is where you want to stick. I don't know for other household chemicals, but I know like my grandma still lives in her house, and if you look under the sink, she's got Comet that has like the old label on it. I don't know how old it is, but it's not a label that I recognize. So I know that I don't know how effective that is. So I don't know if you guys can see my screen, but it's our Healthy Home.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So we develop materials for different individuals.
Cait, are you trying to show us the list that says diluting bleach at home or something else?
I'm showing you the page right now. I'm just
yes, okay, good. That's what we can see, yes.
Yeah, just a brief little overview. So we do have some educational materials when it comes to cleaning. Specifically with COVID is when we did this, but I mean, this is useful for anything. So we have a couple different PDFs and posters that we've created that are really helpful with kind of understanding how to properly dilute chemicals or use them. The top one here that I'm circling, I don't know if you can see that. This is just a 2-page flyer that has.
Okay, that's okay, Cait. No, what we can see is the mountains and your photos. We can see your laptop screen. We can't see. That's why I was asking what there.
Okay, great.
You have to share again.
I will share again, and let's see if you, oh, you know what? I have two screens.
There we go. There we go.
Oh, okay, great.
You have to make that a little bit larger though, so we can all see it if possible.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So this is our website for the University of Rochester. This is our Environmental Health Sciences Center webpage, specifically our Healthy Homes page. So this has all of our resources and information on everything that we do that's healthy homes. And we created a page during COVID that is specifically COVID related. And this is where a lot of the chemical safety materials that we've developed are. So if you are curious, you want these materials, you want to learn more, you can actually go to this website and I'll provide the link for you. And you can download these PDFs. Feel free to share them widely. The one thing I wanted to point out in particular is this disinfecting with bleach, the do's and don'ts. These are tips when dealing with bleach, and it also does help. It gives, if you're local to the Rochester area, it provides different resources locally to contact, and also gives some recipes for bleach. I also, why not during COVID, created some videos so you can see me all of the time. And all of the information that I just read to you is in these two videos on YouTube. And I am actually doing everything right in front of you. So in real time, you're watching me mix bleach, you're watching me put on my PPE, we're going through the things in my kitchen. It's got two parts to it. The second one is me actually diluting the bleach. The first one is the little introduction and all of my information. And these can be shared on social media, anywhere that you'd like to share them. They are only in English and they don't have subtitles, from what I remember.
Are there other materials? I see a little bit, you've got some Spanish there, but are there other materials? Because that was one of the questions as to whether or not this information is available in more than one language.
Right. Our materials are not. So the things that you're seeing English and Spanish, this is everything COVID related. So these are government academic materials. This is from Boston University talking about infographics and disinfecting. So you're welcome to poke around and see what else we have collected here. It may not be from us that we've developed, but we would love to share them widely. So I would definitely come to this website, take a look and see if there's anything that's useful. Here's a nice little infographic that was created by the Bluffington Fire Department in South Carolina about mixing chemicals. So it's kind of a nice mix of things. And I will copy and paste this right into the chat. But I think that is it about bleach, unless anyone has any questions. I will also note that we developed a lot of these materials when COVID first started. So, you know, we're not physicians, we're not nurses, we do environmental health work. And so we wanted to stay in our lane, but be helpful during the pandemic. And we do know that the CDC, the World Health Organization, have kind of redirected their recommendations on COVID safety. So cleaning was a big concern. Now it's less of a concern, and really what they're recommending is wearing a mask, social distancing, getting a vaccine, washing hands. So I will just preface it with that is, yes, we are kind of advocating for cleaning, which is very important, but we do know that over the pandemic, recommendations really have changed and shifted in importance. So I just wanted to preface that we are aware.
Thank you, Cait. That was all really great information, and thank you for putting that context in there too. So with that, we just gave everybody a lot of information. So does anybody have any questions for Art or Cait?
And I actually would like to say that I think this is such a great group of people. I would love to hear if you think we should have covered something that we didn't, or something that you were expecting to see. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Hi, this is James from EPA. I wonder about exterior cleaning, pressure washing and power washing. had been an issue in the past, and I'm not sure if there are any new developments and best practices for how to handle that. The recommendations were to try to collect the wastewater, which is difficult to do. Contact your local wastewater treatment facility, find out what they want you to do with it. I don't know if there's any new developments in that.
The way I'll start, and then I'll let Elizabeth do it. Some communities have just plain outlawed power washing on a structure built before 1978, so that there really is no way to contain that water and power washing. And if you're going to try to do something, yes, you want to use plastic, and you may be able to use more of a brush as opposed to power washing with a lot of the water blowing everywhere. You can use a lot of soap and water on a brush, where you're not going to, it's not going to get in the air as much, and it'll stay closer to the front. But some municipalities such as Rochester, they don't allow power washing because you cannot collect all of that information. And if it's vinyl siding, it's not as much of a problem. If it's a deck that is not painted, then that's not as much of a problem. So it's, if you're spraying any old wood that has any kind of paint on it, then I would say don't power wash it at all.
I will just say that yes, and I hope Len will chime in, that here in Rochester, the local lead ordinance actually supersedes RRP and within the city limits, and power washing and power scraping, any of that stuff is not really allowed, because it is considered that you're creating a public health hazard by dispersing the lead paint dusts. And Len, please do either correct me or give more detail, please.
No, you're absolutely correct, Elizabeth. I hope you can hear me, and good evening.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent presentation so far. I appreciate everything that's been said. I haven't found anything in there that I could correct at this point. So great job, everyone. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. You know, and
I'm sorry, Len, can you just introduce yourself and your role?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, in case those that came on after I did. My name is Len Merritt. I'm the manager of code enforcement for the city of Rochester. And prior to this position, I was the lead paint program coordinator for many years, working with all of these fine folks on this panel right here for many of years. And I know their strengths and their passion. So believe me, when you've got the right people doing the right thing here tonight. So, but yeah, just to quickly go over that answer, we know what the detriment will be to any of that kind of work. We know that multiple owners and contractors out there will not get the RRP certification as they're required to. So we went a step beyond and made those type of activities illegal in the city of Rochester. Immediately, when any of that kind of work is being done, we will stop you immediately. We can ticket you for that violation and hopefully send you to the right place where Art is doing his class to get you trained to know that this is the reason why this contamination can hurt someone. And that goes for residential properties as well as commercial.
Thank you so much, Len. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. We're really glad that we had representation from all over, and thank you again to Cait and Art for helping to lead this, the really great information here.
And I just wanted to underscore, thanks, Andrea, for moderating everything, and to reach out to the coalition if we missed something, if something could be more helpful, and we will certainly provide the information that we have. We have great resources in our community. We have tons of great resources across the country. There are many experts out there, and if we don't have the answer, we can find it for you. So please do let us know if this was beneficial. and if we can be of further assistance. And it will be on we have a YouTube channel. So this will be on there as well. So you can go back and refer to it if that's helpful. And just want to thank everybody for joining us this evening.
I want to thank everybody as well. And I would also want to give you one more resource, which is the phone number for the EPA, which is 1-800-424-LEAD, L-E-A-D. And they have some very helpful information and are willing to talk as well. So the 1-800-424-LEAD, I have called them in the past for questions, and they're a good resource. And the EPA website is very good for RRP. So if you're doing questions, and a lot of that is available in English and Spanish for free, and you can get a lot of the information there as well.
You know, Art, thank you for mentioning that, because we were sort of, I think this presentation was a presumption that people would know what RRP is, and that you would be in it. But the truth is, if you become RRP certified, if you're required to by your job or by the work scope of the work that you're doing, there is a whole component that goes on within the RRP training that looks at some lead safe cleaning techniques. So in essence, making sure that people understand that there's lots of different ways to do this, but also underscoring that people need to make sure that their RRP certification is either they get it, and that they keep it actually current, because of course you have to also refresh it at a certain point. So.
How long does it last for?
5 years for your initial. So if you take the 8-hour initial class, it's 5 years, and then they have a refresher class, which is good for another 5 years. But then it gets a little more complicated. It depends on if you took the refresher live in person or whether you took it online with the hands-on. If you take it live in person, the refresher is good for 5 more years. Otherwise, if you take it just strictly online, it's only good for 3 years. And you can't take it online twice in a row. So you have to at least every other time come and do it live in person. But for Rochester, for Monroe County, they have been very good about providing a grant funding so that people can take it for free in the Rochester area. And I'm also doing more work with Erie County so that when the COVID crisis starts going away, I'll be doing more for Erie County as well, for doing more RRP training and the refresher training.
We've been very lucky in Monroe County that the Monroe County Department of Public Health's HUD grant has funded ongoing education for RRP certification. It's been a free course. It's been offered, and the city has also offered courses as well. And it's been essentially twice a month since 2010. So there's been a serious commitment to making sure that contractors are educated. One of the things we like to do is also recommend to anybody, if they're going to be doing any home renovation projects, because it is a free class, that they go and they actually take the class. And Andre and I are both certified in RRP, and Cait, I believe you actually got certified as well. So this is something that we just encourage kind of anybody who's going to. I remember the first time I got certified, I realized all of the home renovation projects I'd done incorrectly, and swore to never to do them again. So it's a course that we recommend that if you're going to be doing anything along those lines, that it's not just solely for contractors. And we also like to encourage homeowners to take it so they become educated consumers. And so they know what to look for and what to expect when their contractor says they're RRP certified. And when you're shopping for a contractor, to make sure that, if you ask for their RRP certification number, they don't give you a blank look. So all of these things help all of us, right? They also make sure that we're driving consumer work towards hiring certified contractors, and that we're all becoming better educated about it, and that we're not creating inadvertent disaster areas. So
right.
Are we done? Is that, are we gonna do another false goodbye? Because it's also kind of fun hanging out with you guys. We don't get to see each other that much, so it's nice to see you all. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Have
night.
a good night.
Night.
Thank you.